Hi everyone, we are live. My computer apparently restarted itself right before going live, before I was set to go live. So I had to take a few minutes and pull up all my articles and get all my stuff going again. But hello, we are here now. And I see there's a bunch of people in the chat. We will start right away with Trash Man. Oh, where'd my mouse go? With his intro live from the southern of the Carolinas. It's the moderator the country wishes it had, who is known for real questions the public actually wants to know. Hint for the MSM. And with that, here's Dolly. Thank you. Thank you. So I see that we have, oh, it just skipped way up. So we have Jesse Meek. We have Bone Blyett 762. I like that. Robin is in. Benjamin Sholnick, Bob Messicola, Cap'n Mac 82, Rick Tennant, Iron Daisies, Andy Robichaud, John Morgan, Kelly Karshner, Iron Horseman, Lone Wolf, Michael 763. We have, let's see, Blue River Cat, and New York Liberty, Brian Blackwell, Aaron Miller, D. Miller, Jonathan Stevie, Paul Rome. Gardner Goldsmith is here tonight. Hi, Gardner. Green Range. We have Mark Menning, To a Metalhead, Rod Miller, David Neal, Hugh Galbraith. Lots of folks. All the regulars are here. Gary Guyman, Shadow Bear. Let's see who else. JJ, Ben Anderson, Mark Thompson, Rick Tennant, all kinds of good folks. Tennessee Beowulf also is in the house. Matthew Beverly, Brent Proser, Juan Antonio Espinoza, Sinister Italian, 7959 Cat, The Lost One, PC Gaming, Mr. Mark, Michael Frolich, Fine Ape is in the house. Uncle Mike is in. Joseph Crackle, I never know how to say it. And Mr. Rover Pilot is in as well. EAC PCS, Country Mindful, Fox P2, General Q Public Anon, and Google user. Very, very original username. All right, folks. So, oh, and Squid Monkey. I missed Squid Monkey. All right, so as per usual, I'm going to tell you guys ahead of time because the people in the chat always do and I miss it. Don't forget to hit the like button if you're new, subscribe, share this video. This story especially is getting suppressed big time by Reddit, by Twitter, by Facebook, in some cases YouTube. And so actually this video, aside from super chats, is right now at least 100% not monetized because there have been some people whose streams and videos about this, I guess, have also been suppressed. And so I figure it's harder for YouTube to nuke things in active live stream than when it's just a plain uploaded video, number one. And number two, it seems to be when things aren't monetized, they don't get wind of it as quickly. So that's how we're going to try to do that today. Kevin Lewis, thank you. Thank you for the super chat. And Pickle Jars for Hillary has a not nice thing to say about Hunter that would probably get in trouble for saying on the air. And Christoph is in. Hi, Christoph. So we are going to get right into it. So I am going to start by actually reading to you guys the first story that was released by the New York Post. There has been several, actually, in the last few days. Well, first, actually, we'll do a quick summary. So basically, the New York Post got a hold of a hard drive. So supposedly what happened is Hunter Biden dropped his laptop in a bathtub or something, dropped it off at a computer repair shop, and never returned it. And the laptop, I guess, wasn't able to be salvaged or something, so a copy of the hard drive was made after a certain amount of time, when an item isn't picked up, it's considered abandoned and becomes the property of the business owner. So the laptop became the property of the laptop repair shop, right? And so then they're in there and they're doing whatever they can to try to fix this, copy the hard drive, whatever. They see some pretty condemning stuff that goes against things that Biden has said publicly about ties to other countries and with his son and Burisma, all of this stuff. So he does two things. He makes a copy of this and gives one copy to the FBI and gives the other copy to Rudy Giuliani. Now, what's interesting here is supposedly Rudy Giuliani has had this hard drive for over a year. And the information on it that is pretty damning evidence. There is no smoking gun as of yet, but pretty damning evidence. He supposedly has had this for a year and is releasing it now because it's election year and the October surprise. So then the main question there becomes, because we can assume that's just dirty politics and that's what happens, what has the FBI been doing sitting on this hard drive for that long? Because I'm assuming that they either got it at the same time as Rudy Giuliani or maybe even before Rudy Giuliani, and we haven't heard anything about it whatsoever. And the Senate Republicans are all up in arms because as far as I know, as far as they know, there isn't even an investigation into this and the stuff that was talked about in the hard drives. And then, of course, so this was reported, Rudy Giuliani gave the information on the hard drive to the New York Post. They are leaking it like item by item, one day at a time, supposedly building up to this big bombshell smoking gun about Biden corruption. And as they have been slowly leaking out this information and doing reports on it, Twitter and Facebook have been actively suppressing this story, and they have a few different reasons for that. First, they were saying that it wasn't corroborated and was probably fake news, and then they said, the information was hacked. So, that goes against our policies of sharing hacked information. And now there was another thing where they said that it went against their policies of sharing personal information. So they can't even make up their mind as to why this story is getting censored. But I can tell you that they blocked the New York Post, they blocked the Trump campaign, and they blocked Kayleigh McEnany, the press secretary of the White House, after they too tried to report on or post this story. And in fact, we can go to this tweet here from Andy Stone over at Twitter, who says, while I will intentionally not link to the New York Post, I want to be clear that this story is eligible to be fact-checked by Facebook's third-party fact-checking partners. In the meantime, we are reducing its distribution on our platform. So flat out admitting it and then saying that this is part of our standard process to reduce the spread of misinformation, fake news. We temporarily reduce distribution pending fact checker review. And yet there are so many things that end up on Facebook and Twitter that have zero basis in fact whatsoever. I mean, just for example, the whole Russian hooker P dossier thing, it's actually come out that was basically a hoax. It was, oppositional research that was done in bad faith by the Hillary Clinton campaign. There was no basis. In fact, it was pretty much all made up. And we now know, if you've been paying attention enough, that Trump is a hardcore germaphobe. And while I'm sure he has done many shady things, if he's that much of a germaphobe, he's probably not going to let rando Russian hookers pee on him. Regardless, that story was spread far and wide all over the internet because it was about Orange Man bad. Now we have this story that, as far as we know, is not hacked information. I mean, it's a guy, presumably with a drug addiction, broke his laptop and then forgot to pick it up. I mean, that's not hacked information whatsoever, but it paints Joe Biden in a bad light and could seriously affect the election. And so that is being suppressed and censored. Pickle Jars for Hillary says that the Steele dossier wasn't made up. It was based off of Bill Clinton's exploits. And a super chat here from Christoph says, Steve Scully, Hunter Biden, DNC, they need to learn about electronic security, and the FBI has gone full partisan. That is danger bad. That is very danger bad. Right above that, Bisley Blackhawk says the FBI is just doing what the FBI has been doing. And I believe also the GOP has filed a complaint against Twitter and Facebook for this, and they are calling for an open investigation. But so let's get to the story that started it all, and then all these subsequent stories and little bits of information that have come out since then. Okay, so this is the original New York Post article that has been blocked off of Twitter and Facebook. People that have been trying to post it have gotten their accounts temporarily suspended or shut down, again, including Kayleigh McEnany and the Trump campaign, and the New York Post itself, the oldest newspaper in circulation, has been shut out of the two major social media platforms over this story. Now, that is telling you something, that they are hovering above the mark. Emails reveal how Hunter Biden tried to cash in big on behalf of, oh, that's not even the first one. That's the next one. Let's see. Here we go. I believe this is the original story. October 14th. Yes. Okay. So we'll get to the Chinese emails in a second, because that was the most recent one. Smoking gun email reveals how Hunter Biden introduced Ukrainian businessman to VP dad. So this is the big reveal of the first story. Hunter Biden introduced his father, then Vice President Joe Biden, to a top executive at a Ukrainian energy firm less than a year before the elder Biden pressured government officials in Ukraine into firing a prosecutor who was investigating the company, according to emails obtained by the Post. Now, and this is interesting because we have public video of Joe Biden bragging about getting this prosecutor fired and withholding, I think it was $1 billion from Ukraine or something like that. You remember this came up when they were saying that Trump had engaged in a quid pro quo. And people were saying, oh, well, Biden did too. And, you know, the left was saying, oh, well, that's different. That's different. It's not the same. Joe Biden bragged about that, and then later backtracked and said that it never happened, and he never knew anything about anything going on with Burisma or anything that his son was doing. This article with these emails, and then the one that I'll be showing after about emails with China, show something very, very different. Anyways, this never before revealed meeting is mentioned in a message of appreciation that I can't say these names. Vadim Pacharski, I believe, Pacheski is what I've been hearing people pronounce it as. An advisor to the board of Burisma allegedly sent Hunter Biden on April 17th, 2015, about a year after Hunter joined the Burisma board at a reported salary of up to $50,000 a month. Now remember that this is a guy that is on the Burisma board and has no experience in the energy sector whatsoever, and has a very active drug addiction. I mean, not saying that people can't be functional addicts, but it's probably pretty hard for them to get a job on a board in a foreign country when they know nothing about anything that the job entails or would be their responsibility. So in this email, it says, Dear Hunter, thank you for inviting me to DC and giving an opportunity to meet your father and spend some time together. It's really an honor and a pleasure, the email reads. Now the left, the Biden camp, is saying that this email is not proof of anything because he's just saying thank you for the opportunity. And so he's saying that Hunter Biden gave this person the opportunity, but you know, they were never able to follow through. Well, but the thing is whenever you go to like a job interview or something, or you have a meeting, you always say, thanks for the opportunity. That's what you say. I mean, so what? Did this guy go all the way to DC and then be like, oh, yeah, sorry, I'm not actually going to meet with Joe Biden? It's really doubtful. An earlier email from May 2014 also shows Pacheski, I don't know how they're saying it. There's someone that's going to be telling me in the comments, I'm sure. Reportedly, Burisma's number 3 exec asking Hunter for advice on how you could use your influence on the company's behalf. And now this is interesting because, as we will see in one of the later articles that talks about emails with Chinese dealings, there's a lot of talk about holding money for the big guy and doing things for the big guy and using the big guy's influence. Now, there is no proof that that big guy is Joe Biden, but there are times in some of the emails that Hunter Biden does refer to Joe Biden as my guy and talks about his influence and being able to use that influence. But that is stuff that we wouldn't know until a couple days later. The blockbuster correspondence, which flies in the face of Joe Biden's claim that he's never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings, is contained in a massive trove of data recovered from a laptop computer. And so here is the screenshot of the actual email that says, thank you for inviting me for DC and thanks for the opportunity for being able to meet your father. There we go. The computer, and here we go, the computer was dropped off at a repair shop in Biden's home state of Delaware in April 2019, according to the store's owner. Other material extracted from the computer includes a raunchy 12-minute video that appears to show Hunter, who's admitted to struggling with addiction problems, smoking crack while engaged in a sex act with an unidentified woman, as well as numerous other sexually explicit images. And what's weird about this, as an aside, I've been seeing a lot of lefties on Twitter posting the pictures and screenshots from that video and talking about what a hottie and a hunk Hunter Biden is. And that's pretty creepy. The customer who brought in the water-damaged MacBook Pro for repair never paid for the service or retrieved it or a hard drive on which its contents were stored, according to the shop owner, who said he tried repeatedly to contact the client. The shop owner couldn't positively identify the customer as Hunter Biden, but said the laptop bore a sticker from the Beau Biden Foundation named after Hunter's late brother and former Delaware Attorney General. Now, there are some theories that this information is hacked and that some third party got a hold of this laptop and dropped it off at the repair shop to sort of like clean it so that then you couldn't prove that it was hacked information. That is one theory. However, I was watching Steven Crowder's live stream of the town hall last night, and before the town hall, he interviewed Rudy Giuliani, and Rudy Giuliani said that they actually had proof that it was Hunter Biden's laptop and that there was a receipt or something that Hunter Biden signed when he dropped off the laptop. So I'm not really sure which one is true. It could be that an assistant dropped it off. It could be, you know, the theory about the nefarious third party, or it could have been Hunter Biden himself. I would not put it past an assistant to forget about something. I would not put it past for someone with an active drug addiction, looking as serious as some of the photos in this video makes it look, to also forget about a laptop that's been dropped off somewhere. Photos of a Delaware federal subpoena given to the Post show that both the computer and hard drive were seized by the FBI in December after the shop's owner says he alerted the feds to their existence. And so this is the copy of the subpoena. But before turning over the gear, the shop owner says he made a copy of the hard drive and later gave it to former Mayor Rudy Giuliani's lawyer, Robert Costello. So that means that the FBI did have this before Rudy Giuliani. They had it since at least December, and as far as we know, have done nothing, which is a little sketchy. Steve Bannon, former advisor to President Trump, told the Post about the existence of the hard drive in late September, and Giuliani provided the Post with a copy of it on Sunday. Less than 8 months after Pachetsky thanked Hunter Biden for the introduction to his dad, the then vice president admittedly pressured Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko and Prime Minister these Ukrainian names, Yatsenyuk, into getting rid of Prosecutor General Viktor Shokin by threatening to withhold $1 billion U.S. loan guarantee during a December 2015 trip to Kiev. And again, this is the incident that Joe Biden has bragged about, specifically saying, I looked at them and said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor is not fired, you're not getting the money. Biden infamously bragged to the Council on Foreign Relations in 2018. Well, son of a bitch, he got fired. Shokin has said that at the time of his firing in March 2016, he had made specific plans to investigate Burisma that included interrogations and other crime investigative procedures into all members of the executive board, including Hunter Biden. Joe Biden has insisted that the U.S. wanted Shokin removed over corruption concerns, which were shared by the European Union. Now, Biden claims that the reason he wanted this prosecutor fired is because this prosecutor was not going to investigate Burisma, and Burisma needed to be investigated. I find that highly unlikely if his own son was on the board, and I also find that highly unlikely because after this guy was fired and the new prosecutor was put in place, there was still not an investigation. All the charges and the investigation were dropped. So if Joe Biden really did want to get this guy fired to get a proper investigation, why wasn't the next guy fired when there was no investigation and everything was dropped? That's pretty questionable. Meanwhile, an email dated May 12, 2014, shortly after Hunter Biden joined the Burisma board, shows Pachetsky attempting to get him to use his political leverage to help the company. The message had the subject line "urgent issue" and was also sent to Hunter Biden's business partner, Devon Archer, who sat on the Burisma board at the time. And so here is that email. Let's see if we can zoom in on this a little bit more and get the whole thing in so you guys can see it. So this is from the Ukrainian board member that I can't properly pronounce to Devon Archer and Hunter Biden. Dear Hunter and Devon, following our talks during the visit to the Como Lake and our further discussions, I would like to bring the following situation to your attention. As previously pointed out, on a number of occasions, the representatives of new authorities in power tend to quite aggressively approach NZ, unofficially with the aim to obtain cash from him. Initially, it was done by the representatives of these names, man, this party and the Ministry of the Internal Affairs. These so-called unofficial communications would entail blackmailing. In case we don't cooperate, i.e. provide money in cash, the gas production business of NZ would be dropped, destroyed, etc. It's important to note that the party is represented in the government by the General Prosecutor and by Minister of Ecology and Natural Resources of Ukraine. The last organ, together with the Senate State Geological and Subsurface Survey of Ukraine, which is directly subordinated to the Ministry of Ecology and Natural Resources, are principal regulators in the area of issuing licenses for natural resources and control. After unsuccessful attempts to receive funds from our side, they proceeded with concrete actions. So far, we got information through unofficial channels that one or more pretrial proceedings were initiated by the Ministry of Internal Affairs with regard to Burisma Holdings, companies that are heavily engaged in gas production and happen to be our holdings' key companies. The Ministry of Internal Affairs contacted the Ministry of Ecology and the State Geological Survey of Ukraine to obtain all documents concerning licenses issued since 2006 until now to the companies of our holding. Apart from that, they would unofficially approach our partners. Man, this guy had bad spelling. Clients, suppliers trying to intimidate them to stop working with our companies. These are typical instruments to destabilize business. And here we go. We urgently need your advice on how you could use your influence to convey a message / signal, etc., to stop what we consider to be politically motivated actionings, bearing in mind the following. So, I am guessing that Hunter Biden does not have a whole lot of influence himself, but being a Biden and the son of then Vice President Joe Biden, he probably has some influence, or rather his father has some influence. And now this is the things that they're looking for advice on. Paczewski said that the representatives and new authorities in power tend to quite aggressively approach NZ unofficially with the aim to obtain cash. So NZ isn't identified in the email, but appears to be a reference to Burisma founder Zlochevsky, whose first name is the Ukrainian version of Nicholas. So it is assumed that it is in reference to the company's founder. Hunter Biden responded by saying he was with Archer in Kedar and asked for more information about the formal, if any, accusations being made against Burisma. And then the exchange came the same day that Burisma announced it had expanded its board of directors by adding Hunter Biden, who was put in charge of its legal unit and will provide support for the company among international organizations. That sounds a little fishy. According to a news release that's since been scrubbed from Burisma's website. Hunter Biden actually joined the board in April of 2014, according to multiple reports. His lawyer said last year that Hunter was not a member of the management team, adding at no time was Hunter in charge of the company's legal affairs, which is kind of different from this news release, right? About 4 months after Hunter Biden's correspondence with Paczewski, Archer forwarded Hunter Biden an email chain with the subject line "Tax Raise Impact on Burisma Production," which included Paczewski saying that the Ukrainian cabinet had submitted new tax legislation to the country's parliament. If enacted, this law would kill the entire private gas production center in the bud, he wrote. And in the September 24th, 2014 email, Paczewski said that he was going to share this information with the U.S. Embassy here in Kiev, as well as the office of Mr. Amos Hochstein in the States. At the time, that guy was the State Department's newly appointed special envoy and coordinator for international energy affairs. So in December of 2017, Ukraine's state-owned energy company announced that Hochstein had joined the company as an independent director, but on Monday he announced his resignation. So this guy resigned once this information started coming out, and the guy who had been part of the State Department's envoy randomly joined Burisma. That's also a little fishy. The company has been forced to spend endless amounts of time combating political pressure and efforts by oligarchs to enrich themselves through questionable transactions, he wrote in an op-ed. In addition to denying that he's spoken to Hunter Biden about his overseas business dealings, Joe Biden has repeatedly denied any conflict of interest or wrongdoing by either of them involving Burisma. Well, I mean, these emails right now show something completely different. And last February, he got testy during an appearance on NBC's Today Show when co-host Savannah Guthrie questioned whether it was wrong for Hunter to take that position, knowing that it was really because that company wanted access to you, which is the theory. And some emails with China dealings show that as well. He says, well, that's not true. You're saying things you don't know. You don't know what you're talking about. He said at the time, well, now it appears that that was in fact the case. And here's some of those fancy pictures that are going around social media here that were on the hard drive that for some reason leftists are really fulminating over. And I didn't get, like, at first when there was a meme going around that, like, Facebook, Twitter, like, LinkedIn photo meme. And at first when I saw these going around, I had no idea what it was about. So Biden also got upset last year during a Democratic primary town hall where a man accused him of sending Hunter to Ukraine to get a job and work for a gas company. He had no experience with gas or nothing in order to get access to the president. And again, back then, Joe Biden said, you're a damn liar, man. That's not true, and no one has ever said that. Well, people are saying it now, and we have some proof of that now. So what's Joe Biden going to say about that? And then he called the man fat and challenged him to a push-up battle because that is mature and presidential. The FBI has referred questions about its seizure of the laptop and hard drive to the Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office, where a spokesperson said, my office can neither confirm nor deny the existence of an investigation. Which, I mean, legally they probably have to say, but it also is a little bit fishy because you would think with all the publicity going around this, someone would announce, okay, yeah, we're doing an investigation. Hunter Biden's lawyer refused to comment on the specifics, but instead attacked Giuliani. He has been pushing widely discredited conspiracy theories about the Biden family, openly relying on actors tied to Russian intelligence, the lawyer said. And Pachesky and the Joe Biden campaign did not return requests for comments. Hochstein could also not be reached. Now, also, in the little interview on Steven Crowder last night with Rudy Giuliani said that they can prove that this is Hunter Biden's hard drive because the lawyer emailed him and asked to get it back, is what Rudy Giuliani says. So they're not commenting, and they're saying, when they do talk about it, they say that it's fake news and that Rudy Giuliani is a Russian operative, but they're also like, please give me that hard drive back, pretty please, in email, supposedly. So they're supposedly asking for this back and leaving a paper trail about it. That's not exactly how you deny something, right? I'm going to check the super chats. And then we'll go into the next little clips here and some of the other stuff going on. Aaron Miller, thank you. Jesse Meek says, I really wanted to be involved in the stream, but I keep losing signal where I'm at. Tried to send this message 3 times. We'll watch it tomorrow. See y'all later. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Trashman44 says, the FBI a little sketchy. Just a smidge. Just a smidge. I have to go into this other window real quick to make sure I got all the supers. I only have 2 computer monitors today, so I have to be switching around here. Rose Blight says, Facebook and Twitter, orange man bad, so anything bad posted is good. Biden good, so anything bad is harmful and blocked. Basically, that's what we're seeing. Robin says, what's worse than COVID-19? Biden 20. Pretty much. And it's very Orwellian and 1984-ish with the censorship that's been going on around this. So as we saw, Andy Stone was talking about how this story, while not fact-checked yet and not yet disproved, was going to be taken down and suppressed on Facebook. So we saw that. And then we have this guy here who works with the Biden campaign making a statement that the fact that Twitter and Facebook stopped the story from spreading is somehow proof that the information is false, when no one has any proof yet that the information was false, and that they purposely announced on Twitter and Facebook that they weren't sharing they weren't allowing the information to go through, even though it hadn't been proved false. So this is pretty ridiculous. So this is, I'll put up the volume so that you'll be able to hear this.
I would also want to ask you, Twitter has been under a little bit of fire for blocking tweets connected to this recent New York Post article about Hunter Biden's connections in Ukraine and Joe Biden's alleged involvement when he was vice president. What is your campaign response to this article, and do you think that Twitter is doing the right thing here?
Well, look, I think Twitter's response to the actual article itself makes clear that these, purported allegations are false and they're not true. And glad to, see, social media companies like Twitter taking responsibility to limit misinformation.
Which is absolutely ridiculous. So they have no proof. They suppressed the article without proof that it was false, and then the fact that they suppressed it without yet knowing that it's false is somehow proof that it was false, is the argument here. Very, very astute argument. And as I said, lots of people that tried to share this story from the New York Post did in fact have their accounts suspended. If you go over on the New York Post Twitter now, I was looking through it last night, and at the time, let's see, there were, you could scroll through and you would see, here's an article here, but if you scroll through, they've posted a lot of stuff. But when I looked at this last night, you would see, okay, all these articles, and then the tweet where the original article was supposed to be said that it was removed by Twitter. I don't know if we can see that now scrolling through, but that's what it looked like last night. They have their regular news stories, and then anything that popped up. Here we go. This tweet is no longer available. And this is, where that article was at one point. So now here's about some of the hullabaloo around this. Facebook limits spread of the post-Hunter Biden expose. Facebook on Wednesday moved to limit the spread of the post reporting on bombshell emails from the Hunter Biden laptop that show he introduced his father, Joe Biden, to a Ukrainian energy exec, a move that led President Trump's campaign to accuse the company of interfering in the election. And what's interesting is on that town hall, no one in the media questioned Biden about any of this stuff. But they spent the first practically 15, 20 minutes on the Trump town hall asking him about his COVID test and to deny white supremacy. It was actually pretty funny to watch because he blew up at them and was basically like, this again, you guys do this to me every time, and made jokes about it. The social network may also have independent fact checkers examine the exclusive story based on the younger Biden's emails, according to Facebook spokesman Andy Stone. So that is the tweet that I showed earlier. And it's if they don't have access to the hard drive, how are they going to fact check this? And not to mention, these fact checking organizations are typically leftist organizations, number one. Number two, there are Facebook and Twitter executives on the Joe Biden campaign. Well, that's not suspicious at all now, is it? It was not immediately clear from Stone's tweet whether Facebook would apply that treatment to just one or all of the post stories about Biden's private correspondence, which was obtained from a hard drive left at a Delaware repair shop. Facebook generally asks fact checkers to review stories that the company thinks contain misinformation. The Silicon Valley Titan says it adds labels to content that's been fact checked so people can read additional context. But yet they were scrubbing it from the website completely. Facebook did not immediately respond to an email asking why it decided to limit the story's spread and whether a fact checker had started reviewing it. The move drew immediate fire from the Trump campaign, which accused Facebook of trying to tip the 2020 election in Biden's favor. And what's really interesting about this is I was listening to a video on this story earlier, and that talked about a 2018 article, I believe it was, in which the CEO of Reddit openly talked about how they could tip elections if they wanted to. And indeed, if you go to Reddit right now, it'll be very difficult to find anything about this story anywhere on Reddit. Meanwhile, Twitter warned some users who tried to recreate the article, which has prompted a U.S. Senate probe that headlines don't tell the full story. Twitter said this label is meant to encourage users to read the article before sharing it. I mean, the funny thing about that is I think if people read it, then it's even more damning than if they just saw the headline. The prompt is part of a test that we're doing right now. They say it does not depend on the outlet of the article or the contents of the article. And what's funny is supposedly Giuliani has told a bunch of different news outlets that they could come and take a look at the hard drive if they wanted to try to corroborate the story. None of them are doing it. And the Washington Post, without ever even seeing this hard drive, is saying, well, we don't think it's real, so this is fake news. So Washington Post is combating this. Washington Post, who has endorsed Joe Biden for president, by the way, and I think it's bizarre that newspapers would endorse people for president. Washington Post says that it isn't real, but they haven't actually done any examination of the evidence, so go figure. So now we have this Senate probe. So the Senate committee is now investigating the Hunter Biden hard drive. So we have the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee confirmed it is working with the repairman whose identity was confirmed by the Post to verify documents from the hard drive. And supposedly they've been looking at these emails and checking dates, and it lines up with everything in official agendas and schedules and things like that. And there's supposedly a lot of stuff on this hard drive that could only belong to Hunter Biden and, couldn't belong to anyone else. Like, it couldn't have been planted or made up. There are so many red flags about the Biden family trying to cash in on the vice president's position that it can be hard to keep them straight, says Committee Chairman Ron Johnson. Today's report raises more questions that must be resolved. What we know for a fact is that Hunter Biden took millions of dollars from foreign nationals, including the wife of former mayor of Moscow, people tied to the Chinese Communist Party, and other unsavory characters. Joe Biden needs to finally come clean and tell the truth to the American people about all of these issues, and he needs to do it now. And of course, the left is saying, well, this is just partisan politics and it's some smear and it's now the Republicans trying to throw the election. But I mean, I think really all the information that's coming out definitely warrants an investigation. And then it talks about one of the emails. Biden said last year, I have never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings, including his reported $83,000 monthly pay on the Burisma board. That is a ton of money for a guy that knows nothing about the energy sector, and as far as I know, has never been on any kind of board of anything else ever. $83,000 a month, that is a pretty big chunk of change. So, I mean, what could this guy who has an active drug addiction, is supposedly so non-functional that he drops off a laptop with all of this damning information and completely forgets about it, that's, taking all these selfies of drug use and these videos of him banging hookers while doing crack, and has no experience again in the energy sector or anything of the like. what is this guy getting paid $83,000 a month for if it's not connected to the Biden name? I mean, it's pretty suspect. I mean, maybe he has some hidden talent or something that, no one's told us about. But I mean, all we've ever heard is about Hunter Biden is how he's the black sheep of the family and has all of these problems and makes all of these bad decisions, blah, 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 blah. I mean, at the very least, right? I mean, some of these foreign companies and these foreign nationals could now come forward and be like, hey, Joe Biden, we're going to blackmail you with this information that we have about your son. I mean, at the very least, that is a possibility, right? So House Democrats impeached President Trump in December for asking Ukraine to investigate Hunter Biden's employment. According to the Post, the repairman contacted Johnson's committee in late September, one day after it released a report on Joe Biden's apparent conflicts of interest in his son's international business dealings, including a claim he received $3.5 million from the wife of Moscow's former mayor. And yet, it is Trump that is Russia, and is the Russian operative and has all these ties with Putin and all that. But here we have, evidence that folks in Moscow and Ukraine are just like dumping money on Hunter Biden and giving him $3.5 million for what? So he spoke on October 5th with 3 members of the committee staff. A spokesman for the committee confirmed to the Post that it is investigating this. And yet, the FBI and the Delaware State Attorney General is saying, well, we can't confirm or deny anything. Well, the Senate flat out is like, yeah, we have a committee and we're investigating, and this should be investigated. We regularly speak with individuals who email the committee's whistleblower account to determine whether we can validate their claims, the spokesman said. Although we consider those communications to be confidential because the individual in this instance spoke with the media about his contact with the committee, we can confirm receipt of his email complaint. We have been in contact with the whistleblower and are in the process of attempting to validate the information he provided. So that's that. It gets better. There is actually more. Let's see. So we have a email that somehow got to Tucker Carlson that shows that Joe Biden visited Ukraine after Hunter was asked by his business partner to arrange for, quote, influential U.S. policymakers to travel to the country to help their firm. So this email was revealed by Tucker Carlson on his show, and I really wish that I could show you some clips of that, but I'm pretty sure I would get smacked with a copyright claim for that, so we're not going to do that. So we're just going to read the Daily Mail article. New leaked emails claim to show that Joe Biden visited Ukraine just over a month after a Ukrainian business executive asked his son Hunter to arrange for highly recognized and influential U.S. policymakers to travel to the country. So, to be clear, Burisma said, hey, Hunter Biden, can you get some influential U.S. policymakers to help us out with this thing? And then a month later, Joe Biden pays the company a visit. That is pretty suspect. So this happened in November 2015, and it's an email from Pachesky saying that the visits were needed to close down any pursuits against the head of the firm where Hunter Biden sat on the board. During Biden's visit the next month, he successfully pressured Ukrainian officials to fire the prosecutor who was looking into Pachesky's business. So that now we have a better timeline for when they were asking for some influence to basically get rid of this lawsuit. Joe Biden shows up, he gets the prosecutor fired, and then in 2018 brags about how he did it and basically blackmailed them by threatening to withhold $1 billion from Ukraine. He also revealed another exclusive email to Hunter from PR company Blue Star Strategies, which spoke about Biden's trip to the Ukraine as vice president that year. In the first email, Dated November 2nd, 2015, from Prochaski to Hunter, the businessman stated that the purpose of the email is to be on the same page as to our final goals, including but not limited to a concrete course of actions. Carlson added that according to the emails they had seen, the exec wanted high-ranking U.S. officials to express their positive opinion of Burisma, which might have been code for get the prosecutor fired because you don't see any wrongdoing. The Fox host also claimed that Prochaski wanted the U.S. administration to act on Burisma's half in winning this good PR. The scope of the work should also include organization of a visit of a number of highly recognized, influential, current and/or former U.S. policymakers to Ukraine in November. According to the email, it added that they're aiming to bring meetings with and bring positive signal and message and support, as well as close down any cases, pursuits against the head of Burisma in Ukraine. Again, that is that lawsuit. And then a month after is when Joe Biden went, got the prosecutor fired. So the email doesn't go into further details about the trip, but it does talk about how this PR firm was involved in a conference call with the vice president, which is kind of funky. Why is a Ukrainian PR firm for Burisma in a conference call with Joe Biden? That's a little fishy too, right? Attached is a memo from the Blue Star Strategies team with the minutes of the call, which outlines the trip's agenda and addressed several questions regarding U.S. foreign policy towards Ukraine. So again, we have this PR firm that works with Burisma. Burisma is their client, and they're having a conference call with Joe Biden and including a memo with minutes where they are talking about questions regarding U.S. policy towards Ukraine and towards Burisma, and what the agenda of Joe Biden's trip to Ukraine should be. Again, a PR firm for Burisma is telling Joe Biden what they want the agenda of his trip to Ukraine to be. I mean, I don't know really how else we can look into that and read into that. So Biden visited Ukraine between December 7th and 8th, and on the 5th of his 6 visits to the country as vice president. Only 2 of the trips were taken after Hunter joined the board of Burisma. So they are saying that the short time frame between the email and the trip proves that Joe Biden was influenced by his son to go over to the Ukraine and take care of this prosecutor and the investigation and stuff with Burisma. Tucker Carlson also noted that Biden himself may have profited from it, suggesting that an email between Hunter and his kids in which he said, unlike their grandfather, he wasn't going to take half their salary. So there is a screenshot of this email. I believe that there have been issues again on Facebook and on Twitter with it getting taken down because they claim that it is revealing personal information, and that's why they're saying that they're taking it down. But there is an email from Hunter Biden to his children saying that unlike his father, Joe Biden, he will not be taking half of their salary. So at the very least, Hunter Biden was on the board of Burisma and getting $83,000 a month, and now he's saying that Joe Biden was taking half of that money. Well, that's pretty suspect too, isn't it, for a guy who says that he had no idea about any of his son's business dealings or had any idea about anything going on with Burisma, and yet he's taking half of his $83,000 a month. What? I mean, I don't even think that we could blame dementia for that. Honestly, that's a flat out lie. And then the rest of the article goes over the rest, what we just talked about in the other New York Post article. So there was a second batch of emails on Thursday, which suggested Hunter pursued deals with a major Chinese energy company, including one that would be interesting for me and my family. They focused on Hunter's dealing with Yi Jianming, the former chairman of the energy company, in 2017 after his father had left office and when it was thought he would not run in 2020. Yi has not been seen since he was taken into custody by Chinese authorities in 2018 amid rumors links to the Chinese military and intelligence services. So that means that now we also have these emails suggesting that Hunter and Joe Biden were in contact and working with some guy who is also working with Chinese intelligence. What? That is insane. Absolutely insane. So now let's go and look over at that info dump about the Chinese emails. Let's see, which window was that? So here's this story now. You know what, let me go in and check the super chats first before I jump into this next one, because I saw some more come in. And I saw someone in the chat said that they were here from Tim Pool, so that's pretty cool. Hi, welcome. Let's see. Robert Chappelle says, if you can't use elected office to, oops, it just scrolled away. If you can't use elected office to line your pockets, why run? Excellent question, am I right? Robin Patty says, Joe Biden wakes up in the morning not knowing if he's a human, a lamp, or a duck. That sounds pretty accurate. He did, just a few days ago, he was in Ohio and gave this whole speech about how he was running for Senate and didn't even stop and correct himself. He just was like, yep, Senate, that's what's happening. Kyle PTX1 says, from Breitbart today, Hunter Biden business associate flips from prison, releases emails detailing China influence peddling operation. Well, that is really interesting. I tend not to use Breitbart as a direct source because people will just say that it's fake news or it's alt-right or blah, blah, blah. But when they post stories like that, if they link to their original sources, I will go and look at those original sources and see what they have to say. So maybe we'll check that one out if we have time. I know I'm going into really deep detail about this stuff, but it's just pretty explosive and crazy stuff. And I think that it's important to know as many details as possible. So now here is the Thursday email cache revelation. Emails reveal how Hunter Biden tried to cash in big on behalf of family with Chinese firm. So, this is getting, these are still kind of small tidbits, but they're getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so I'm really interested to see, because Rudy Giuliani is implying that he has this big smoking gun that will be revealed 10 days before the election. So I'm wondering if it's going to be kind of like a WikiLeaks thing where we get a little bit of something every day and then it's like, bam, explosion, or what? They could just be saying it. Chester Thomas, thank you. And Kyle PTX says that they show the email. Okay, well then we'll head over there if we have time. So this is the story from yesterday. One email he received in May 2017 referred to remuneration packages for 6 individuals. Hunter Biden pursued lucrative deals involving China's largest private energy company, including one that he said would be interesting to me and my family, in emails obtained by the New York Post. So interesting for me and my family. Well, who's his family? Joe Biden. Come on. And yet they've been denying this and dodging this and ducking away from it at every turn. But man, this is a hell of an October surprise, right? One email sent to Hunter Biden on May 13th, 2017 with the subject line expectations, including details of remuneration packages for 6 people involved in an unspecified business venture. So it's really interesting. They went through all of this trouble to make sure that they didn't put like Joe Biden by name or anything like that in these, and yet this idiot just like left his computer at a repair shop. I mean, I'm sorry, but like, how dumb do you have to be? I mean, just because you're not leaving a paper trail on your computer, like the way that you think, well, golly, if you leave behind the whole computer, that doesn't really even matter, does it? Biden was identified as chair/vice chair, depending on agreement with CEFC, which we saw from the Daily Mail article, is an energy company in China. His pay was pegged at $850, and the email also noted that Hunter has some office expectations. He will elaborate. In addition, the email outlined a provisional agreement under which 80% of the equity or shares in the new company would be split equally among 4 people whose initials correspond to the sender and 3 recipients, with H apparently referring to Biden. And now here is this part of, so here's where they detail out the numbers, and then at the end, 10 held by H for the big guy ? So the big question is, who is the big guy? So here's the part where they don't actually expressly say that Joe Biden is the big guy, but in other emails, Hunter Biden refers to Joe Biden as the guy and my guy. Not quite the same, but similar enough that maybe we can draw some conclusions. Neither Jim nor the big guy were identified further. The email's author, James Gillier of the international consulting firm J2CR, also noted, "I am happy to raise any detail with Zhang if there is shortfalls." Zhang is a reference to Zhang Jianjun, the former executive director of that Chinese energy company. The email is contained in a trove of data that the owner of a computer repair shop, blah, 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 was seized by the FBI. So here's more pictures. I mean, if this hard drive like didn't belong to Hunter Biden, like someone had to do a hell of a hack job to get all of these pictures and like dump all of these weird selfies on it too. Like, why is dude taking a selfie of him with a picture of trash in the back seat? If you're not from Massachusetts, you're not going to get this reference, but that is a Brockton thing to do. Another email sent by Biden as part of an August 2nd, 2017 chain involved a deal he struck with the since vanished chairman of this energy company for half ownership of a holding company that was expected to provide Biden with more than $10 million a year. Now again, and remember, there's also that email implying that Joe Biden takes half of Hunter Biden's salary. So, excuse me, how many millions are we up to at this point? If we've got, that $83,000 a month and then this $10 million a year, I mean, that is a lot of cash. And we do know from Biden's tax returns, we don't know where the money is coming from, but we know that he's making enough money to be paying $3 million in taxes a year. Now, presumably, he has an excellent accountant that knows all of the loopholes and all of the deductions and all of that. So he must be making bank to be paying $3 million in taxes every year. Yi, who had ties to the Chinese military and intelligence service, hasn't been since seen, blah, 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 taken into Chinese custody. Biden wrote that Yi had sweetened the terms of an earlier 3-year consulting contract with the energy company that was to pay him $10 million annually for introductions alone. Introductions to who? And again, this is a guy that has, as far as we know, no real experience working with energy companies and managing anything at all. And yet they are paying him $10 million for introductions, presumably for introductions to Joe Biden, the family's influence, because that's what we saw in a different email, right? The chairman changed that deal after we met in Miami to a much more lasting and lucrative arrangement to create a holding company 50% owned by me and 50% owned by him. And so here is, I mean, God, look at that. He even does like the full caps. Oh, God. He's one of those people that just randomly types in caps. Oh, ridiculous. Consulting fees. Again, consulting on something that he has zero experience with. Consulting fees is one piece of our income stream, but the reason this proposal by the chairman was so much more interesting to me and my family, again, is that we would also be partners in the equity and profits of the joint ventures investments. So if he was the only one involved in this, then he would just say, oh, it's me and it's interesting to me. But no, interesting to me and my family. Being paid for introductions and influence. Interesting to me and my family. I mean, it's not spelled out, but I don't get how much closer you could get with this circumstantial evidence to being like, well, gee, obviously he's using his name and Joe Biden's influence to get money, to get further in these companies. I mean, what else could it possibly be? A photo dated August 1st shows a handwritten flow chart of the ownership of Hudson West split 50-50 between two entities ultimately controlled by Hunter Biden and someone identified as chairman. According to a report on Biden's overseas business dealings released last month by Senators Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley, a company called Hudson West 3 opened a line of credit in September 2017. Credit cards issued against the account were used by Hunter, his uncle James Biden, and James's wife, Sarah Biden, to purchase more than $100,000 worth of extravagant items, including airline tickets and multiple items at Apple stores, pharmacies, hotels, and restaurants. So if we have evidence that Hunter Biden was given all of these ridiculous money and that his uncle, aunt and uncle were also using this money, I mean, I don't think that it would be that much of a stretch to again say, well, Joe Biden was probably getting some of this money, because really what influence does like rando James Biden and his wife have? What introductions could they, you know, what services could they possibly providing with their introductions? I mean, the only person that really has all that much influence, you know, that they could really, that a Chinese energy company and a Ukrainian energy company could benefit from is Joe Biden, right? The company has since been dissolved, and Hunter Biden's law firm was one of two owners, according to the report. Biden's email was sent to Guanyang Dong, whom the Wall Street Journal in October tied to the purchase by Yi-linked companies of two luxury Manhattan apartments that cost a total of $83 million. Oh my God, $83 million apartments. That is insane. Dong, who owns a sprawling mansion, has been identified in reports as the CFO of an investment firm based in Hong Kong. Oh my goodness, this just keeps going. This is insane. The documents obtained by the Post also include an attorney engagement letter executed in September of 2017, in which one of Yi's top lieutenants, former Hong Kong government official Chi Ping Patrick Ho, agreed to pay Biden a $1 million retainer for counsel to matters related to U.S. law and advice pertaining to the hiring and legal analysis of any U.S. law firm or lawyer. Why the hell do they need crack smoking Hunter Biden to provide them legal counsel on how to hire a lawyer? If they are paying this guy $1 million on contract, I would assume they know how to get a lawyer, because the lawyer probably wrote the contract. I mean, they tried to hide this, but I mean, they didn't do a very good job. Patrick Miller's in the chat saying that Joe Biden was set up by a hair salon. In December of 2018, a Manhattan federal jury convicted Ho in 2 schemes to pay $3 billion in bribes to high-ranking government officials in Africa for oil rights in Chad and lucrative business deals in Uganda. So, we have evidence that Hunter Biden, on top of everything else, was also connected to a guy who was caught paying off and bribing U.S. officials for, oil rights. And it's an energy company. And Hunter Biden keeps getting involved in these energy companies. That's pretty fishy too. And again, the FBI is not going to confirm or deny, and the Delaware Attorney General is not going to confirm or deny whether they're investigating this. The fact that the Senate confirmed it right off the bat leads me to believe that the AG and FBI probably don't have an investigation. And if they did, like, again, the FBI has been sitting on this since December. They've been sitting on it for almost a year, and we've heard nothing. And we have all of this proof that came out with the Donald Trump impeachment stuff and all of that. The FBI was actively working against Trump. I don't think it's that much of a stretch to guess that maybe they just kind of sat on this and were trying to bury it and weren't going to do anything about it because, they want to get Trump out of the White House. I mean, we have text messages from FBI people saying that they were going to prevent his presidency. So, saying that they sat on something that is bad for Joe Biden, I don't think that would be that much of a stretch. So this guy that tried to bribe the U.S. officials in Africa for oil rights served a 3-year prison sentence and then was deported to Hong Kong in June. Neither Biden's lawyer, the Joe Biden campaign, Gilliard Dong, nor Ho's lawyers returned requests for comments, but Biden's lawyer has previously said again, there's no need for any comment on any so-called information provided by Rudy Giuliani. So it's interesting, they're not even denying any of this. They're just flat out not talking about it. The theory is that they're not talking about it because if they say something and try to deny something and then more evidence comes out later, they're going to have egg on their face about it, right? So that's why they're not saying anything about it at all. Robin says this is like an extreme version of Where's Waldo. Basically, I feel like we need to do like that Always Sunny in Philadelphia meme where like Charlie has all the stuff on the wall and all like the red strings attaching it. I feel like we need this for this story. Absolutely ridiculous. And then again, all of this is being suppressed by the big social media tech companies who have been arguing since day one that they don't have any responsibility for anything on their platform because they're a platform and not a publisher. But by actively taking stories down and suppressing things and blocking the Trump campaign, blocking Kayleigh McEnany by blocking government officials, they are flat out deciding what does and doesn't go on their platform, which makes them a publisher, which puts them in a very different light legally. And it's funny, so many of these news stories in the last few years have come down to that argument. Rod Miller says, if I was a Democrat spin master, I would say about the 50%, nothing more than a joke about how much tax being taken due to dad's tax policy. Oh, that's funny. Joe Biden is always saying like, Trump tax cuts, they benefited the rich and blah, 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 blah. But, yeah, you could make that joke. Robert Chappelle says, listen, Jack, good morning, Sunday morning, Joe Biden on Burisma. Oh, man. Okay, so someone said that there was an email over at Breitbart. So let's check that out. There was also, we don't have time to get into it, but again, the Obama conference call with the Burisma press company. That was on the New York Post. Okay, so there is, someone said there is a new Breitbart. And the Epoch Times is going to be making a new send your fold-out poster commercial for YouTube. All right, so we'll do a quick search for Breitbart. Emails. Oh my God. You know what? Let's do this first because this is funny. From the Washington Post, sorry, Republicans, social media companies aren't obligated to spread your lies. Wow. 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 So this is from today. Say, well, what's the biggest scandal of the week? That U.S. spy agencies have warned that President Trump's personal lawyer was promoting Russian disinformation to smear Joe Biden over his son's dealings with Ukraine, or that Twitter and Facebook hesitated to act as a conduit for Giuliani's wild charges. If you're a partisan Republican, the answer is obviously B. If you're a normal, patriotic American, the answer should be A. What crock of shit. Oh my God. Wow. And they're claiming that the New York Post is nothing but a tabloid controlled by Republicans. Wow. Even if all the emails are true, they don't establish a scandal. The very first line of the very first New York Post article was false. Hunter Biden introduced his father, then VP Joe Biden, to a top executive at Ukrainian energy firm less than a year before the elder Biden pressured government officials in Ukraine into firing a prosecutor who was investigating the company. So as the Washington Post has repeatedly reported, the Ukrainian prosecutor was not investigating Burisma, the energy company on whose board Hunter Biden sat. Joe Biden demanded on behalf of the U.S. government that Shokin be fired precisely because he was complicit in corruption. So there's that argument again that the prosecutor was fired for not investigating Burisma, and yet the prosecutor that replaced him and dropped the investigation was not fired. I don't think that that argument really holds up when that's what happened afterwards. I mean, note my copious use of allegedly and supposed. Oh my God, caution is in order because Rudy Giuliani is connected with Russia and with active Russian agents. It would be the height of irresponsibility to simply broadcast these dubious allegations without first verifying their veracity and provenance. And yet, Facebook and Twitter have no problem promulgating all kinds of stories about Trump when, I mean, you can sit there and you can watch like a Trump speech. And, Kyle says it was on Zero Hedge. Zero Hedge I like. I'll go to Zero Hedge all day long. And yet they'll promulgate stories where, like, you look at what the news says that Trump said, and then you watch him actually speaking, and they're two totally different things. All right, so we'll head over to Zero Hedge. Oh, here we go, top article. I actually really like Zero Hedge. And they also usually have all of their sources. A lot of people, there are some people that don't like them because every article is supposedly written by Tyler Durden, but I find that they tend to be really thorough and accurate and have a lot of information. So this is the email, thank you, or the article that Kyle PTX was talking about. So we'll cover this one and then we'll have to wrap it. Oh, and people asking me if they can send me some stuff. So actually I've been having issues with my new PO box and they keep sending stuff back to people. So I have to get a new one. So no, right now you can't send me anything, unfortunately. Okay, so from Zero Hedge, Hunter Biden business associate flips from prison, releases emails detailing China influence peddling operation. Emails from a former business associate of Hunter Biden's inner circle who's serving time in prison for a 2016 investment scheme reveal that Hunter and his colleagues used their access to the to the Obama administration to peddle influence to potential Chinese clients and investors, including securing a private off-the-books meeting with the former vice president. So that's in some of the emails and things that we already looked at. We'll make this bigger for you guys. The emails given to investigative journalist Peter Schweizer by former Biden associate Bevan Cooney and published by Breitbart. Oh, so you're right, it was on Breitbart. Also revealed that in 2011, the younger Biden and his business associates discussed strengthening relations with China Inc. as part of a new push on soft diplomacy for the Chinese. As Breitbart notes, these emails are completely unconnected to the Hunter Biden emails released by the New York Post. So these are new emails. So this is someone saw what was happening in the news and said, well, wait, I have some emails too. Let me show you my emails. Cooney believes he was the fall guy for an investment scheme in which Hunter and business associate Devon Archer avoided responsibility. He reached out to Schweizer after the journalist published Secret Empires in 2018. Archer was initially spared jail and handed a second trial. However, a federal appeals court reinstated Archer's fraud conviction in the case last week. Well, that's interesting. Cooney provided Schweizer with written authorization, his email account name, and password to his Gmail account to retrieve these emails. He authorized in writing the publication of these emails, noticeable because it is the first time a close associate has publicly confirmed Hunter's trading on his father's influence. And will this, Facebook and Twitter and whoever can't claim was hacked if there are hand-signed releases of information, basically. So we have some more revelations in a November 5th, 2011 email. One of Archer's business contacts suggested helping to arrange White House meetings for a group of Chinese executives and government officials who would make potentially outstanding new clients. The group, the China Entrepreneur Club, so this is a whole different Chinese group than what was in those other emails, and a whole different set of U.S. officials getting introduced to Chinese companies. The group included Chinese Communist Party loyalists, Chinese billionaires, and at least one respected diplomat from Beijing. According to the report, CEC, established in 2006, has been referred to as a second foreign ministry for China's communist regime. The gross income of CEC members is estimated to be equivalent to roughly 4% of China's GDP. Holy crap. I know it is a political season and people are hesitant, but a group like this does not come along every day, said intermediary Mohammed A. Khashoggi on behalf of the CEC to a Biden Archer associate. A tour of the White House and a meeting with a member of the Chief of Staff's office and John Kerry would be great. So right there, they're talking about having meetings with the White House and political leaders. And yeah, so here is a copy of the email with the addresses redacted. Wow. So yeah, this could be an opportunity for the party to have potentially outstanding new clients. That is crazy. Wow, that is a lot of email. Oh my goodness, it just goes on and on and on. Wow. The outreach to Hunter Biden's group came after several failed attempts to secure meetings with top Biden administration officials with no success. Well, that's interesting. So they tried to meet with people in the Obama and Biden administration, had no luck. And so then that's when they reach out to Hunter Biden, who is being paid $10 million a year by other companies for introductions. And now they're looking for introductions to people in the White House. I mean, this is just like the connections are nuts. From the DC side, as you will see below, they, CEC, have written letters to several members of the administration and others and have so far not had a strong reaction, reads an email. This is China Inc. wrote Khashoggi, referring to Chinese billionaires. Biggest priority for the CEC group is to see the White House and have a senior U.S. politician, or senior member of Obama's administration give them a tour. If your friend in DC can help, we would be extremely grateful. According to Breitbart, Hunter and Devon Archer apparently delivered for the communists. So they succeeded in getting the Chinese a tour of the White House given personally by a senior Obama administration official. Wow. Definitely have a drink with Muhammad and let him know how impressed I was with his whole deal. That's crazy. It was in a follow-up email asking how the meeting went. Absolutely nuts. Couldn't confirm this was Hunter on the line, but we got him his meeting at the White House Monday for the Chinese folks. Reads a reply from Archer. And on the day of the meeting, November 4th, 2011, Cooney emailed Fears to confirm that Archer got the Chinese guys all taken care of in D.C. Meanwhile, White House visitor logs reveal that the Chinese delegation of around 30 members did visit with the White House on November. The logs, however, concealed that the delegation met with former VP Joe Biden himself. So there we go. According to White House logs, these Chinese delegation from this Chinese company that again is reaching out to Hunter Biden for introductions got themselves a meeting with Joe Biden. Absolutely nuts. So I just suggest the meeting may have opened the door for Hunter and Devon Archer down the road, as just 2 years later, they formed the Chinese government-funded Bohai Harvest RST investment fund, which saw Chinese money pour into it for investments in CEC-linked businesses. Wow. And then a whole bunch of stuff about their connections with the Communist Chinese Party. Wow. I missed the part where Hunter was back in pocket. Oh yeah, where was that? Well, that's in there somewhere then. Oh yeah, here we go. Okay, well 6 days after the initial overture, Archer received a follow-up email asking how a meeting with CEC's representative went. The email closed with, "Do me a favor and ask Hunter Biden to call me. I've tried reaching him a couple of times." Archer responded, "Hunter is traveling in the UAE for the week and with royalty, so probably next week before he will be back in pocket." That is an interesting choice of words. Very interesting choice of words. People saying some nasty things about Joe Biden in the chat. So there we have it. Those are all the details that we have now. It's going to be interesting to see what else is revealed. If they're talking about, if Giuliani is saying that the big smoking gun is coming 10 days before the election, we still have some time before that happens. Where's my mouse at? So let's see, the election is the 3rd. So that would be like a little over a week from now. So it's going to be an interesting question of, are we going to keep getting tidbits, little bits and pieces every single day until this election? Or is that going to be it until the big reveal? It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. Trashman says, people who think the New York Times is controlled by the right are batshit crazy. Well, the accusation is that the New York Post is being controlled by the right. But I don't know, I think that they tend to be more innocent than, or not innocent, less partisan and more factual, we'll say, than some of the other outlets out there. I mean, look at Washington Post just being like, oh, well, social media, Twitter and Facebook, who, have connections to Joe Biden's campaign. Oh, they just don't want to spread bad information. Yeah, that's totally what it is. Totally how it is. That's exactly what happened. So there you have it. Nothing expressly, there is nothing specifically that flat out says Joe Biden is involved in all of these dealings with foreign companies and taking money from foreign companies and using his influence, except for that time in 2018 where he did brag about doing that, actually, with a bribe. But there is a lot of circumstantial evidence that all seems to point towards Joe Biden being involved in this stuff. So, wow, I got so riled up that now my voice is hoarse. Bruce the Boss Brooks says, let's just hope YouTube doesn't join the censorship war and come for your channel. I'll follow you wherever. Keep exposing the truth. Well, it's interesting. I've gotten a lot of complaints and some like copyright complaints in the last couple weeks. I even got some rando Argentinian news company put a copyright complaint or a copyright claim, I'm sorry, on my coverage of the VP debates, which is interesting. They had no standing. I used C-SPAN, and by C-SPAN's own website, anything that they put up is in public domain and can be used so long as you tell people it came from C-SPAN. So they didn't have anything to stand on, but it still took until yesterday, I believe, for that to get pulled. And I am on other platforms. All of my videos are also over on BitChute and on Library and on Odyssey. They also get ported over to Gunstreamer. I know people are saying like, oh, that's not really like a thing anymore, but they are over on Gunstreamer. Yeah, so I mean, I'm out there. I'm on different places. And yeah, Talisman says fair use. Yeah, that's another thing. So, D. Grimes says every president in the last 30 years had at least one investigation when they were elected. Yeah, I mean, that's true. But, and Bruce the Boss says they're coming for you already. The war is on. Yeah, it's possible. But so, I mean, that's why I did this video as a live stream, because it's a lot harder for them to go in and interrupt a live stream than it is for them to just nuke a video that's already been uploaded. So even if this, somehow gets nuked, at least the folks that were here already saw it and got the information. And of course, I encourage everyone to go over to the New York Post and check out this stuff on their own and watch those drops. So please hit like, subscribe if you're new here. Check out any of my support options down in the description. There's plenty of options to support this channel beyond a like, share, or subscribe if you want to do that. I have merch. I'm going to be adding some new merch items that you guys have been requesting at some point when I get to it. But that's that. So I've actually gone a little bit over already, so I have to hop over to my other thing. But again, thanks to everyone for tuning in. I know I didn't interact with the chat as much today, but I had a lot of information that I really wanted to cover and get it all out for you guys. So I'm glad that we got to do that in the time allotted, and even got to check out this extra article from Zero Hedge. So again, thank you for tuning in. We'll have some regular videos coming up soon, and of course the weekly Friday live stream. So I will see you guys then. Thanks for watching, and as always, thank you for helping me to spread the message of liberty.